Hi, everybody. For today's discussion post in week 8, I'm going to talk about the article From Disease to Holiness, Religious-Based Health Remedies of Italian Folk Medicine. In Professor Giarelli's lecture, his video lecture this week, at the end of that lecture, he referred to some of his students at the University of Prague, and that he found it interesting that while they were modern day university students, they still seem to refer back frequently to practices in their homes, which may have seemed ancient and um, have so much history behind them. And there was a contrast there between the modernness of the student and still living sort of in these common day remedies. And in this article, I felt there was reference to that as well. Certainly, most of the things talked about in this article were based on the Catholic faith, which I think in today's society, if you are a person of religion or spirituality, maybe to some degree, you do refer back to ancient things from the very beginning times of especially religion, especially Christianity, and the cross would be one thing that I think about today, commonly used and adorned for adornment or reference, protection, maybe just a reminder of faith. I just felt that was an interesting parallel to what he was speaking of. So this article basically was looking at religious traditions used to heal disease between the late 19th century and the mid 20th century, and how these crossed the mythology, folklore, medical use boundaries. So the combination of religion, magic, and pre-Christian practices were basically in this article divided into 9 categories. And I'll just read them off my notes. Saints, pilgrimages, holy water, blessed oil, blessings, religious objects, contact, signs, formulas, and the religious calendar. And I'm just going to go through each one of those categories very, very briefly. It was a great article and be worth a read for sure. If you hadn't spent time reading that, you might want to dig a little deeper into that one. So the first category, saints. Basically praying to the saint who had a similar suffering in their martyrdom. So example, Saint Lorenzo was burnt alive during his martyrdom, and therefore he was prayed to for the healing of burns. Secondly, praying to the saint whose name matched the request or illness. An example of that would be Saint Liberata. His or her name derives from the Latin meaning libero, which means to deliver. Therefore, the liberation from all diseases would be obtained from praying to this saint. The next category, pilgrimages. This involved a journey to a sacred place. It was thought that disease was a temporary state of punishment for sin. So traveling to an origin or a place where a saint, quote unquote, resides would be the pilgrimage. And then upon arriving there, there usually would be some sort of act or ritualistic passage. Seemed to be very common. Passing through one door, exiting through another, leaving the disease behind or the ailment behind. Also shedding of clothes, pilgrimaging to that place, shedding the clothes, shedding the disease, donning new clothes as a new body or healed body. The next category would be holy water or blessed oil. It was thought that it could eliminate sins and drive away evil. So oil could be washed over or placed on body parts. Holy water could be used for submersion, could be drink or sprinkled. Blessings would be the next category. Blessings were typically made over bodies in the form, blessings were made over sick bodies. They could also be made over objects, common day objects, food, animals, homes, public buildings, basically asking for protection or asking for a disease or a spirit to leave that particular object. Religious objects. This was what I referred to earlier. And to me, a cross is still a religious object that common day many of us, while we may not rely on it for healing, we do rely on it for spiritual depth and enlightenment. Some objects that this article talked about were St. Vito's rope, St. Francesco's stick, key of St. Valentine and St. Donato to heal epilepsy, the Rose of Jericho to help infertility. The next category is contact. This would simply be touching, the physical touch to a symbolic contact. A toothache was an interesting one. You would attach through your teeth, which means biting onto, is how I envision that. You would attach a ring, attach and ring a church bell to heal a toothache. That would take a lot if you had a sore tooth. Another example they gave was dragging your side against the church wall to heal kidney pains. And again, this was making physical contact with something that they felt had healing power. And the last category is signs, marking signs on a body to heal. So making the sign of a cross on somewhere on a body where there was an ailment. A specific example that they gave was tracing the sign of a cross 3 times using oil on the body to treat sciatica. Formulas was the next category. Reciting words, reciting verses or chants. There was an article that I read earlier in this lecture series on charms, which originally I thought would be like the charm on a necklace or a bracelet or an amulet or something that was worn on the body. But these were incantations, chants, series of words that were repeated over a body. So these would be considered formulas in this article. In this thought, the healer invites the illness to leave the victim in the name of a saint or Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, or Mary. Okay, religious calendar. I think this is the last of the categories. This basically was people performing acts on certain dates based on the religious calendar. So religious dates such as Christmas or Easter or the night of St. John. So a few of the examples here were on Christmas, people would bathe in the sea to fight skin ailments. They would spread fat or oil to heal arthritis and heal wounds, all on this Christmas date of the religious calendar. Another example was Night of St. John. People suffering from leprosy rolled in fields on this date on that religious calendar. And a third example would have taken place on the Easter Sunday. Children with hernias were passed over 3 times, 1, 2, 3, across a split tree that were split just for this reason. So those were examples of things that were performed in concordance with the religious calendar. So in all, I thought this was a really interesting article, and there was a lot of information. I really just tipped the very edge of what it talked about. So if you glanced at that article and read over it, I'd invite you to go back and read it a little more deeply. There are a lot of really interesting examples, and I thought it was well written. Okay, thanks. Have a great day.